While a girl named Wendy is preparing to leave for boarding school tomorrow, she sees her brothers, John and Michael, playfully fighting each other as Peter Pan and Captain Hook. Wendy eventually decides to join them, and as she fights quite hard, she ends up smashing John's wooden sword to hit a mirror. Almost immediately, their dad, Mr. Darling, hears the sound of the broken mirror and heads to the room to check what the kids have done. When he gets there, he sees what the kids have done to the mirror and seems pissed.
Wasn't my fault, it was their silly little game.
Because this is not the first time they've broken it. The kids look really scared, and he asks who's responsible for it. John looks at Wendy for an answer, but Mr. Darling assumes that Wendy is responsible. As he scolds Wendy, she seems pissed and shouts at John for trying to blame her for what happened. She then defends herself and mentions that her brothers were the ones who started the silly game. Mr. Darling doesn't want to hear anything else from her, and he collects the wooden swords from the kids. He also tells their dog, Nana, to come with him, but Wendy asks if Nana can stay with her for the night. Mr. Darling says he won't allow it, and as he seems disappointed in Wendy, he asks if this is how she really wants to spend her last night at home. Wendy says she was just having a bit of fun, but Mr. Darling believes she shouldn't be doing that. He also mentions that Wendy is too old to be playing around with wooden swords. Mr. Darling eventually leaves the room, and John asks why Wendy tried to blame him and Michael for what happened. Wendy says it's every man for himself, and John looks disappointed. As Wendy then checks her new earrings, her mom, Mrs. Darling, comes in and says that they suit her. Mrs. Darling also tells Wendy to take the earrings to boarding school, but she says she'd rather not. Shortly after, Mrs. Darling puts the boys to bed and notices that they still aren't happy about what happened earlier.
Follow your lead, so you must be a good leader.
She then goes to meet Wendy to tell her that she has to be a better example for her brothers, because they look up to her. She adds that they'll always follow Wendy's lead, and that's why she has to be a good leader. Wendy asks how she'll be able to do that now that she's going to boarding school, and Mrs. Darling says she has to go with her head held high. She adds that it's a privilege for young girls to go to boarding school at a certain age because it will prepare them for the life ahead. Wendy doesn't seem to want that life, but Mrs. Darling says she also went to a boarding school when she was young.
If a young lady is lucky enough.
Wendy says she doesn't want her mom's life, and Mrs. Darling realizes that her daughter is scared of something. Wendy says she wants things to stay the way they are, but Mrs. Darling mentions that it's impossible because Wendy is growing up. Wendy says she doesn't want to grow up, but Mrs. Darling mentions that she cannot stop time. She also tells Wendy to imagine all the things she would miss out on if she doesn't see where time will take her. She adds that the world would miss a couple of things if Wendy isn't there to do them. Wendy doesn't say anything else, and Mrs. Darling just sings a lullaby to put all the kids to sleep. Later that night, a fairy named Tinkerbell shows up outside the window while the kids are asleep. After she enters the room, she looks at John and Michael before heading over to meet Wendy. Tinkerbell looks pleased to see Wendy, and she sprinkles some pixie dust on her. Suddenly, Wendy starts floating in the air, and as Tinkerbell flies next to her, John quickly grabs her. Wendy falls to the ground immediately and asks what's going on. Michael says she was flying, and that a little bug made it possible. Wendy doesn't understand this, and as she sees Tinkerbell in John's hand, she looks confused. Just then, a strange boy appears in the room and tells them that Tinkerbell is a fairy and not a bug.
If I know one thing about fairies.
He adds that fairies don't like being called bugs. The kids look shocked to see him, and Wendy realizes that he's Peter Pan. She says she thought he was just a bedtime story, but Peter asks why he can't be both. He adds that he likes hearing stories about himself, and that Wendy's mom is very good at telling them. As he starts looking for something around the room, the kids look shocked and ask why he's at their house. Peter says he came to get Wendy out of the house and to find his shadow. The kids look confused, but Peter eventually finds his shadow with Tinkerbell's help.
It's always trying to get away, and I've only got the one.
After he grabs it, Wendy offers to help him stitch it to his body. As she brings out her sewing kit, Tinkerbell sees a needle and looks scared for Peter. However, Peter tells Tinkerbell to calm down because he's sure that Wendy won't hurt him. Following this, Wendy starts helping him, and she also asks how he knows her name. Peter says he often hears her mom calling her to go to school or do other things, and that most of the time Wendy doesn't always want to go. Wendy asks if he has been spying on her, but he says it's only sometimes.
Hold still.
Maybe I could help you with that.
Wendy asks why, and Peter says he has been waiting for her to say that she doesn't want to grow up. Almost immediately, Wendy accidentally stabs Peter's foot with the needle, and as he gets hurt, he complains that she just stabbed his heart. Wendy says she didn't mean to do that, and Michael mentions that anytime his stuffed toy, Mr. Bear, is hurt, his mom always gives it a kiss. Peter looks confused, and Wendy realizes that he doesn't know what a kiss is. She then picks out something from her sewing kit and gives it to him, saying it's a kiss. Peter thanks her for this and says he loves it.
Yourself. There are no rules, no school.
He then says it's time to go, and Wendy asks where. Peter says they're going to the only place in the universe where she can really be herself. He adds that there are no rules, schools, bedtimes, or parents. As he also mentions that there's no growing up, Wendy looks excited, and John asks if he and Michael can come along. Peter says they can, and Michael asks how they'll get there. Peter says they'll do that by flying, but the kids look scared. He then tells them to think happy thoughts, while Tinkerbell sprinkles some pixie dust on them.
Well, this suddenly seems like a terrible idea.
As they do this, they are able to fly, and this makes them happy. Just then, Peter takes them to Neverland, and as they arrive, one of Captain Hook's pirates spots them. He immediately goes to Hook's cabin to knock on the door and inform the captain that Peter is back. Hook doesn't like hearing Peter's name, and he breaks down the door and shoots the pirate. He then calls his assistant, Smee, to bring him his telescope. After Hook gets it, he spots Peter and tells his pirates to invite Peter down for tea. The pirates look excited and start trying to shoot down Peter and the others. Wendy nearly gets hit, but Peter saves her and her brothers.
Not a me of hands, Smee.
He then takes them to hide behind a rock, and while they're there, he informs them that Hook's pirates are the ones trying to shoot them down. As he tries to come up with a plan to get past the pirates safely, Hook spots them behind the rock. Hook immediately shoots the rock, and the kids fall into the sea. After a while, the currents move Wendy to the shore, but she doesn't see Peter or her brothers around. As she looks scared, she sees Peter's hat and wonders where he is. She then runs around for a while, calling for her brothers, but when she doesn't see them, she breaks down in tears. Almost immediately, a princess named Tiger Lily shows up with Peter's lost boys.
Tinkerbell! Can you hear me?
Tiger Lily speaks a foreign language and asks why Wendy is crying, but Wendy doesn't understand her. Suddenly, one of the lost boys sees Wendy with Peter's hat and assumes that she did something to him. Wendy says she didn't, and Tiger Lily stops the lost boys from hurting her. Tiger Lily then asks if she's the Wendy that Peter went to meet. Wendy says she is, and she also realizes that Tiger Lily is just like the character in the story about Peter Pan. She also figures out that the kids with Tiger Lily are the lost boys, but she notices that they aren't all boys.
Because if you don't know stories, then you're an imposter.
The girls seem offended, but Wendy says it probably doesn't matter. She then talks about how Peter brought her and her brothers to Neverland. She says they got attacked by pirates just as they arrived. Almost immediately, two of the lost boys use a telescope to spot Michael and John being taken into Hook's ship. When Wendy also sees this, she looks scared and worried because her brothers are in danger. Meanwhile, Smee takes John and Michael to Hook's cabin, and when he sees them, he says he can hear a weird sound. Smee looks confused, but as Hook walks toward the kids,
Start at 37.
he sees a watch inside John's pocket. He seems pissed and asks Smee about the rules on his ship. As Smee is about to start from Rule 1, Hook tells him to begin at 37. Smee says Rule 37 is that no one is allowed to say Peter's name on the ship. He adds that 38 is no whistling, and as he's about to say the 39th rule, Hook angrily destroys John's watch and says that clocks aren't allowed on the ship. He then asks the kids how they came to Neverland. As they're about to mention Peter's name, Smee warns them not to forget Hook's rule.
It's on the bear after he executes them.
John says he doesn't care about it and that Peter was the one who brought them to Neverland. Michael also mentions that Peter will soon rescue them. Hook seems pissed that the kids said Peter's name, but he just turns to Michael and asks if Peter is really coming to rescue them. Michael says he hopes so, and Hook mentions that he hates that word. He then heads out to tell his pirates to set a course for a place called Skull Rock. The pirates look excited and immediately follow their captain's orders. Meanwhile, the Lost Boys figure out that Hook's ship is heading to Skull Rock, and they mention that it's bad news because the pirates only go there for executions. Wendy looks really scared, and she begs Tiger Lily and the Lost Boys to help her save her brothers. Following this, Tiger Lily takes them through a secret tunnel that leads to Skull Rock. On the way, Wendy asks why Captain Hook is so hateful, and one of the Lost Boys mentions that it's because he grew up. The other kids also talk about how Hook grew up wrong and is pissed at Peter for cutting off his hand and feeding it to a crocodile. Wendy says she knows that from the story, and one of the Lost Boys looks surprised. Shortly after, they reach Skull Rock and see Michael and John being chained to a rock.
How long have you served on my ship?
Along with Michael's Mr. Bear. Michael and John don't think Hook will really kill them, but Smee mentions that Hook doesn't want kids in Neverland. As the pirates start chanting that there should be no kids in Neverland, an imposter among them changes the chant and says that there should be no one but kids in Neverland. Hook eventually spots the imposter, who turns out to be Peter. Hook looks very pissed, and Peter quickly takes down the pirates before turning to their captain. While they're fighting, Tiger Lily, Wendy, and the Lost Boys head over to release Michael and John. Unfortunately, Tiger Lily's sword is unable to break the chain, and Tinkerbell shows up to unlock it. Wendy looks happy, and as Peter spots her, he says it's good to see that she's alive. Wendy also mentions that she thought something bad had happened to Peter, but he laughs this off and says he's pretty good at not getting killed. As he seems distracted, Hook manages to knock him down. He then threatens to kill Peter as revenge for everything he has done. Peter doesn't seem really scared, and he tells Hook to go ahead because he thinks death will be an awfully big adventure. Just before Hook can stab Peter, Wendy tells him to stop. Hook looks surprised because he hasn't seen her before, and he asks who she is.
Now I will repay in kind with my sword.
Wendy introduces herself and says she's from London, England, where gentlemen don't harm children. Hook doesn't seem to care, and he says they're in Neverland. He adds that he's not a gentleman, just as Peter isn't a child. As he's about to stab Peter again, he realizes that he's standing on a big crocodile. He looks scared and immediately freaks out. One of his pirates tries to help him kill the crocodile, but this only makes things worse. The crocodile then starts attacking all the pirates, and Peter quickly flies out of the cave with Wendy and the others. Hook and Smee barely escape, and as Peter looks at them from the top of the cliff, he makes the sound of a crow, which annoys Hook. Peter then turns to Wendy and says they just had fun, but she slaps his face. Everyone looks surprised, and Peter says he thought she wanted an adventure. Wendy mentions that Peter didn't say anything about getting shot out of the sky by pirates. Peter says he still saved the day, but Wendy mentions that it's not like he did it alone. Peter says he did, but Wendy points out that he has a fairy, a group of Lost Boys, and Tiger Lily all helping him. She asks if he really thinks he would be able to defeat Hook on his own, and he says he would. He adds that he's always defeating Hook, and that's how things will always be.
Beat Captain Hook on your own.
Tiger Lily asks what he would do if things don't go his way, but Peter says they're in Neverland, where things don't change. As they all start walking away, some of the Lost Boys tell Wendy that Peter isn't right about things never changing. Wendy looks confused, but one of the Lost Boys whispers to her that Hook wasn't always Hook. Shortly after, the Lost Boys arrive home, and Wendy notices that Tiger Lily is leaving. Wendy looks surprised, but Tiger Lily says it's not her home. She adds that she doesn't think it's Wendy's home either. Wendy says she doesn't know where her home is or where she wants to be. Tiger Lily says Wendy will soon know, and that it's up to her to figure out where she'll want to call home. After Tiger Lily leaves, Wendy goes into the house and seems impressed with how great it looks. Some of the kids then ask if Wendy can tell them a bedtime story, but she says she wants Peter to tell them one first. She adds that Peter can start by talking about how he came to Neverland and met Hook. Peter says it's a very short story, and that he fought Hook in a duel and cut off his hand. Wendy asks asks why they started fighting in the first place.
Mother and father. Where are yours?
And Peter says it's because Hook is a pirate. Wendy thinks there's more to it, and she asks about Hook's parents as well as Peter's. Peter says she's asking a trick question because there are no parents in Neverland. Wendy asks why there aren't any, and the Lost Boys talk about how they've forgotten their moms. One of them suggests making Wendy their mom, but she says she can't do it because she has a mom, and she's sure that the kids still have one too. As one of them says he won't mind seeing his mom again, Peter seems pissed and says that if they leave, the fun will end and they'll grow up. He then flies to his room and bangs the door. The Lost Boys don't look happy, and Wendy suggests singing them a lullaby. As she starts singing, the kids fall asleep, and Hook also hears the song from where he is in the woods. He says he has heard something like that before, and he suggests tracking down where the song is coming from.
Peter, come on.
After a while, Wendy heads to Peter's room and notices that he canceled the name James on the door. Wendy asks Tinkerbell who James is, and she mentions that it's Hook. When Wendy enters the room, Peter just heads out and climbs onto the roof. Wendy tells him not to be like that, but Peter says he thought they'd be friends. He adds that they've been fighting since she got to Neverland, and Wendy realizes that something like that probably happened with Hook. Peter then mentions that Hook was his best friend and the very first Lost Boy. However, Neverland just wasn't enough for him, and he sailed away one day without a word. Peter adds that when Hook returned, it was evident that he had changed because he became cruel. Wendy says Hook might have just grown up, but Peter doesn't think there's a difference. He adds that Wendy mustn't leave because no one knows what she'll become if she goes. Wendy seems bothered about what she'll become if she stays, and Peter says she'll be like him. Wendy doesn't seem sure about this.
Hook was a friend of yours, wasn't he?
And Peter says he really thought she'd be happy. Wendy says she thought so too, but that Neverland isn't what she expected because it's so real. Peter looks disappointed, and before Wendy can say anything else, he walks away. Wendy eventually heads back downstairs and sees Hook and his pirates with her brothers and the other kids. Hook says she led him back to his old home and that it's time to kill Peter. Before Wendy can say anything, one of the pirates covers her mouth, and Hook heads to Peter's room. Peter tries to hide, but Hook eventually finds him and strikes him with his sword. Peter looks scared as he's about to fall to the last floor, and he says he doesn't like this adventure. As he lands badly on the ground, Wendy looks devastated and asks what Hook has just done. Hook then smiles and says he has killed Peter. After this, all the kids are taken back to the pirate ship. Surprisingly, Peter's shadow wakes up and goes to call Tiger Lily for help. Elsewhere, the pirates lock the kids in a cell, and Hook comes over to ask Wendy about the song she was singing earlier. Wendy says it's what her mom sings to her, and Hook looks sad because the thought of it
I have nothing to say to you.
Then listen.
makes him remember his mom. Wendy feels sorry for him and says she knows the story of how he left Neverland. Hook says the story is missing an important part because he didn't just leave. Wendy realizes that Peter sent him away, and Hook confirms this, saying that his old friend banished him because he missed his mom. He says the interesting part is that he never even got to meet his mom because after he left Neverland, he got lost at sea and was saved by Smee and some pirates. Wendy believes Hook can still be happy again, but he says it's unlikely because everything he could have been has been reduced to the Hook. He adds that his life is what it's like to grow up. Wendy doesn't agree, and she says he just grew up wrong. Hook then tells his pirates to execute the kids, and they all look scared. Smee tries to beg Hook to change his mind, but he refuses. Wendy then tells Hook to kill her and spare her brothers and the other kids. She says they'll be good pirates when they grow up, and they can also work on the ship. Hook admires her courage and tells his pirates to bring her out of the cell so she can walk the plank.
I'm sorry.
Elsewhere, Tiger Lily revives Peter, and he immediately asks about Tinkerbell and the Lost Boys. Tiger Lily says Hook has taken them, and Peter says he'll go after them. As he tries to fly away, he notices that he has run out of pixie dust, and Tiger Lily offers to help him. Meanwhile, a chain is placed around Wendy's body as she's about to walk the plank and fall into the sea. Michael and John look sad as Wendy walks the plank, and Tinkerbell immediately tries to free herself. After Wendy falls falls off the plank while thinking happy thoughts, Hook realizes that he didn't hear a splash. The other pirates confirm this, and as Hook tries to check if Wendy really fell into the water, the ship suddenly gets covered in pixie dust. Everyone looks surprised, and Wendy flies up with Tinkerbell. Hook says she has Peter's magic, but Wendy says it doesn't belong to anyone. Hook then tells her to surrender because she's outnumbered, and his pirates won't mind laying down their lives for him. Wendy then lifts the ship out of the water with her magic, and Hook looks scared. Suddenly, they all hear the sound of a crow, and the Lost Boys realize that Peter is back. After Tiger Lily gets him close enough, he enters the ship and confronts Hook, who asks how he survived. Peter says he had a little help from his friends, and as they start fighting, the Lost Boys also stand up to the pirates. The fight goes on for a while, and Tiger Lily shows up to help Wendy and the others. After a while, Wendy turns the ship upside down to throw the pirates off into the sea. Peter nearly falls with them, but Wendy saves him and gives him some pixie dust, which allows him to start flying again. Luckily, Hook manages to avoid falling, and as he sees Peter, he laments that the worst thing about growing old is knowing that his best friend can stare at him and not recognize him. Peter says Hook was the one who wanted to leave, but Hook laments that he was just a child. As they start fighting again, Peter gets the upper hand but throws down his sword, saying he's sorry for being a bad friend to Hook. Hook looks shocked and says that Peter isn't supposed to do that. He says he wants to fight, but before he can strike Peter again with his sword, Wendy defends him. Hook nearly falls off the ship, but Peter holds on to his hook and tells him to think happy thoughts. Hook tries to do this, but he eventually mentions that he doesn't have any. Following this, he falls into the sea and Peter ends up with his hook. He looks sad and says that Hook was his friend, but Michael and the Lost Boys console him and mention that they're also his friends. Just then, Wendy tells Peter that it's time for the Lost Boys to go home, and he agrees. Tiger Lily then says goodbye to them, and Peter takes the flying ship to London to drop off Wendy and the others.
Right there, Peter. Seconds on to the right.
When the kids reach the house, Mrs. Darling hears strange noises and heads to the kids' room. She sees Wendy closing the door and asks what's happening, but Wendy just hugs her and says she's now ready to grow up. As the kids inside the room continue making strange noises, Mrs. Darling looks confused, and Mr. Darling also comes over to check what's happening. Before Wendy can stop them, they enter the room and see the Lost Boys. Mr. Darling looks shocked and asks where the kids came from, and Michael says it's Neverland. Mr. and Mrs. Darling still look confused, but Wendy heads to the roof to meet Peter, who is crying. Wendy asks what's wrong, and Peter shows her the place he wrote his name when he was younger. Wendy then realizes that he used to live in her house, and Peter confirms this. He says that he used to live there until his mom scolded him one night and told him to grow up. He says he left and never looked back, but Wendy believes he did, and that's why he kept coming back to the same house.
Climbed out of the window, leapt over the garden wall.
Because he missed his mom. Peter says his mom is long gone now, and that he's also just a story told to any child who would listen. He adds that the story never had an ending until now. He also mentions that he might come back to listen to the stories, but Wendy encourages him to stay. Peter still doesn't want to grow up, but Wendy says that after everything that has happened, she believes growing up might just be the biggest adventure ever. She tells him to think of all the things he'd be missing out on if he doesn't grow up. She also tells him to think of what the world would be missing out on with him not being there to do them. Peter says he's not ready to grow up, and as the flying ship starts moving away, he quickly flies toward it. Mr. and Mrs. Darling and the kids look out the window and see Peter leaving. Mr. Darling looks shocked, but Mrs. Darling immediately figures out that the strange boy is Peter Pan. Wendy then tells Tinkerbell to take care of Peter and never forget her. Tinkerbell says she'll never forget Wendy, and she flies away to meet Peter. As the kids say goodbye to Peter,
Bye, Miss Pan.
Wendy writes her name next to his on the wall. Back in Neverland, Hook and Smee survive in the sea while holding on to floating objects. Suddenly, Peter returns with the flying ship, and as Hook sees his old friend, they both look happy and smile at each other. After Wendy expresses her fears about growing up, Peter Pan shows up to take her to Neverland so she won't have to worry about growing old. Unfortunately, her her stay in Neverland doesn't turn out as expected, and she realizes that growing up isn't a bad thing. She also tries to change Peter's mind, but he seems hesitant because he doesn't want to grow old. Wendy then leaves Neverland with the Lost Boys, and Peter heads back to continue his adventures with his old friend, Captain Hook.